What's going on, guys? Welcome back to an episode of the Remote Front Office. I know we took a little bit of a hiatus, but we are back in action. Um, I wanted to say make sure to leave a like and hit that subscribe button. We are working our way up to the first 20 subs here on the channel. Obviously, now that the draft lottery is done, if you guys, speaking of which, if you guys were in the live stream over on the other TikTok, not the front office TikTok, because my other TikTok actually has enough followers for me to live stream it. So we live streamed the draft lottery. If you guys were in that, I appreciate you coming through. And like I said over there, we're going to get more into the nit and grit now. Now that we are down to our last three teams, and then also now that we are starting to come up on um, the draft itself, so we'll have a little more clarification there. And we're also kind of coming up on off-season trades. But today we are covering the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic, I would say, have a pretty bright future. I like what I saw out of them this year. Paolo came in and really surprised me. I didn't necessarily know how well he would do year one. And I was really pleased with the strides he made throughout the year. I was really glad to see Franz Wagner make that sophomore year leap, and hope to see him continue to make that leap. Obviously, the growth of Mobamba not Mobamba. I got my centers mixed up. Bol Bol. I did like to see the progress made from Bol Bol this year. I hope that keeps up and maybe he can solidify himself as an NBA rotation guy. And then obviously Wendell exceeding outside of Chicago. We won't get into that because that's a whole rant for a whole nother day. But Orlando Magic. Current free agents coming up for this team. First one in alphabetical order, Michael Carter Williams. Obviously, he is not a guy that's going to play every game for you. May not even get rotational minutes once a month or so. But personally, I think you just free up the roster spot. I think for both parties, as far as they do have two first-round picks this year. And then I think maybe Michael Carter Williams has at least proven he can still be an NBA rotation guy. And maybe he'll get picked up by more of a contending team rather than being that developmental guy for this roster. The next guy is Mo Wagner, Franz's brother. Personally, he showed flashes. I would try and keep him on ideally a minimum because I just don't know if he's an every night rotation guy. But I do think, as far as with injuries goes and stuff like that, he can step up for you and definitely contribute. Probably not in a playoff setting, obviously, but I do like keeping him around. Also, kind of doing his brother a solid and keeping him around that way. Goga Batadze, he originally was drafted by the Pacers. Um, you have a team option on him. Personally, I am releasing him again with the multiple first round picks this year and just kind of wanting to start um, reducing the amount of guys that are on this roster, right? The amount of guys that you think could potentially be playable. I just think at some point you need to condense this roster into a truly playoff contending roster, right? Admiral Schofield, he's on a team option. I would keep him. I think he's probably a little more versatile than Goga. He plays more of like a wing position rather than a center position. I think your center's pretty solidified right now. Jonathan Isaac right now has a partial guarantee for about $7.5 million. Um, this might be a little bit biased, but I am a Jonathan Isaac guy, a Jonathan Isaac believer. I like when he is on the court defensively, what he can bring, what he can contribute. He's long, he's lanky, he plays lanes, he has fairly good instincts. I'm keeping him, or at the very least, I'm looking to maybe package him to a contending team to try and get back some young pieces. Or maybe even you're using him as a salary filler for a bigger name, right? If you guys are looking at like a Jordan Poole trade, stuff like that that's been kind of floated out. I think Jonathan Isaac and or Gary Harris is typically the salary filler I see in those trades. As of right now, though, Orlando is projected to have $59 million in cap space. Obviously, that depends on Isaac's guarantee, free agents, signing your draft pick guys, stuff like that. Team needs shooting. I mean, if you're running out a lineup of Wendell, Markel Fultz, it's really mainly you're needing like a two guard, right? If you believe in Markel Fultz, Jalen Suggs, I think for right now still needs to be on the bench to develop. I think he's just going to take a little bit longer to develop than people thought coming out of Gonzaga. But I still like the idea of Jalen Suggs as a point guard. I just think right now he's more of a combo guard. Uh, but I also think you need vets at this point, right? You have guys like Gary Harris who doesn't really play. I don't know why he got his extension. Jonathan Isaac obviously doesn't play. Um, Other than that, they're not really looking at any contributing vets, right? The team needs its version of like a wing Al Horford or an Andre Iguodala or somebody just to come in and provide that veteran I've been there type presence, right? Um, this team also needs some playing time. They have a lot of guys under contract, a lot of guys that you would like to see get minutes. Your Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs. You've got Cole Anthony as far as the guards go. You've got Isaac. You've got Wagner. You've got the other Wagner. You've got Bol. You've got Wendell. Like there's just Paolo. There's just a lot of guys on this roster, and I think they need to start condensing down. And you do need a full roster because you're obviously gonna have injuries. You're gonna need guys to step up. But I just think almost at this point you're in like the OKC situation, right? Where OKC just has so many guys that you just don't know who's going to play every night, right? You can't necessarily allow guys to make mistakes when they're playing because you know you have 3 or 4 guys behind them that can already contribute, right? As far as free agents go, I have them going more of the competing now route personally, just because I don't love to see teams that are already on the cusp of making the play-in continue to try and overly develop talent. Personally, I think if you're at this point, I'd like to see you at least try and then kind of see where you're at in the pecking order, right? So the first guy I have, I feel like this guy's been talked about to them constantly. Fred VanVleet. He's got a player option in Toronto. Nobody knows what Toronto's going to do. They don't have a coach yet. Personally, I would be on the blow it up for Toronto. And if that's the case, obviously, as Fred, you're almost 30. You're a smaller guard. You're not going to, your career isn't as long as some of the other guys, right? So personally, I would be looking at potentially this spot as you're probably further ahead on this track than you are on the current Toronto track, right? Another guy, as I mentioned, vets for them, Harrison Barnes. Another wing position's a little heavy, but I think even if he would be willing to come off the bench, just to provide that playoff mentality. Made the playoffs with Sacramento this year. He was in the finals with Golden State. I think even if it's a slightly lesser role, I would like to see him there to develop and kind of mentor your guys as far as playoff atmosphere, winning culture, stuff like that, right? Caris LeVert. Now, don't get me wrong, Caris LeVert has currently underperformed his contract pretty bad. He's an unrestricted free agent. He was making about $18 million in Cleveland. Didn't love what I saw as far as what Cleveland needed from him, right? They needed a small forward who could defend, who could hit open shots, and maybe handle the ball very minor amount, right? In Orlando, I think he'll probably get an uptick a little bit in the ball handling department. But I think he's going to be asked to do a lot more of the scoring rather than the 3-and-D or the facilitator role that Cleveland needed out of him last year. Another guy I have for them is Gary Trent as a player option. Not necessarily the world's greatest defender, but is really good at deflections. And I think pairing him in that backcourt next to Markelle Fultz, I think he's going to provide spacing and really give this team the shooting guard that it needs. Another guy I have is Malik Beasley. I know he didn't really crack much of the Lakers' rotation in the playoffs, but when Beasley's going, he can shoot the ball. Is he great defensively? Not necessarily, but that's what you have a Bol for. You have a Jonathan Isaac for. You have Paolo, Franz, Wendell. You have all these guys that can cover up for him defensively, right? And you're just asking Malik Beasley to go out there and shoot the ball. Now, I don't think he necessarily is guaranteed to become a free agent, or maybe you have to do some sort of trade or something because he is a team option. But I think if the Lakers go the clear cap space for a superstar route, he could be possibly one of the guys they shed the salary of. Another guy I have for them is Kelly Oubre. Kelly Oubre is a little bit younger. He was on that Golden State team as much as it was a detriment to that Golden State team. And maybe as like a backup wing role, I would like to see him. I just don't necessarily know how much he contributes to winning basketball, considering how bad Golden State was. I understand injuries, but how bad Golden State was while he was there, as well as just how bad Charlotte's been the last couple of years. The last guy I have for them is Seth Curry. Now, granted, Seth's a little older. I don't know if he would be willing to go this route as a mentor. But I think, again, as strictly just a shooter, a floor spacer, a mover, a winner, a veteran, I think he fits a lot of those needs in Orlando. I don't think he'd be overly expensive, right? I think he's a guy that you could slide in there pretty easily. and he can play rotational minutes for you, and he can really bring those guys up and build that culture that you want to build there, right? I like the direction they're going. I think maybe Seth Curry just kind of keeps you going in that right direction. The last thing, I think their coach is pretty solid. I like what I saw them this year. I don't really see any need to move on from coaching, so I think they're good there. And then they have 2 draft picks. So they have pick number 6, pick number 11, courtesy of the Chicago Bulls, in the fleecing for Vucevic that they did of us. Personally, like I talked about with playing time, at 6, you're probably getting another wing, maybe a Thompson twin. And then at 11, maybe you're getting like Grady Dick or another wing or possibly Anthony Black. So I personally would look to package these together. I doubt Portland moves out of 3 for a non-star. But if Portland trades Dame, they keep 3. I almost wonder if you can get them to move back to 6 and have them take 2 guys to really accelerate their rebuild. Or the other team I would look at would be Houston. Because I think Houston wants to win now. And I think if you tell Houston you move 3 spots back and you gain an additional first-round pick, I think that might incentivize them as far as trades, because then they go from having 1 lottery pick to 2, and then they don't necessarily have to use it in one package, right? They could use pick 6 in one package, they could use pick 11 in another package, and try and build more of a win now team, right? So personally, I'm looking to move up. Otherwise, I'll do probably like a mock draft here in the next couple of weeks before the actual draft. But I just think if I'm Orlando, you already have enough guys struggling to get playing time, like a Chuma Okeke, guys like that. So personally, I am looking to package up, or I'm looking to package this with somebody on the roster like a Gary Harris, and potentially go get a more NBA ready player, right? You don't want to focus on like a 30-year-old, but maybe a guy that's like 25 to 27. I think you could throw both those picks in there and make a pretty good jump and maybe go more into a playoff push earlier than expected. But yeah, that is all for the Orlando Magic. I appreciate you guys sticking around. Like I said earlier, make sure to follow the YouTube here. And then the next video we have is going to be the Indiana Pacers. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Appreciate everybody coming through. Peace.